Hello, everyone, and welcome back from our break. We're honored for this session to have Congresswoman Doris Matsui with us. And I'm also joined by my co-host, which is the CalSTRS CEO, California State Teachers Retirement System, Cassandra Licknock. And so welcome to both of you. So let me take a quick moment to introduce Congresswoman Matsui to all of our viewers. When the 19th Amendment was passed, there was only one woman serving in Congress. By the 1960s and 70s, with female activism on the rise along with the civil rights movement, those numbers did grow fairly significantly. When Congresswoman Matsui first began her service in 2005, she was one of 85 women serving at that time. Today, that number has grown to a record 144. Representing 27% of the membership overall, including the Speaker of the House. Congresswoman Matsui is a passionate advocate for healthcare, working to ensure equitable access to high quality, affordable care for all, including the advancement of telehealth and mental health services. In 2014, she authored the Bipartisan Excellence in Mental Health Act, which is helping to build a mental health workforce in the community setting, thereby increasing access across the country. Congresswoman Matsui also works to advance policies for clean energy, improving the economy, expanding internet access, advancing automatic transportation technologies, and on the local front, here in Sacramento, strengthen flood protection for the Sacramento region. As co-chair of the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition Caucus, she has helped to spearhead numerous initiatives for sustainable infrastructure and also authored legislative proposals designed to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions while boosting clean energy for the manufacturing and job sector. She's also passionate about STEM education for women and girls, as well as the role of the arts in helping to spur creativity and innovation. I think we're all interested in hearing her talk about the impact of the growing number of women in Congress and their hand in policymaking, and also the role she believes we can all play in helping to advance equality for all Americans. With that said, let's go ahead and get the discussion started. And so, Doris, I'm going to start out with a question, and Cassandra and I will exchange those questions with you. Okay. So the first question we have for you is, why did you decide to serve in Congress, and how did your previous leadership experience in the Sacramento area really help to prepare you for that role?
Well, thank you very much, Marcie, and it's great to see you, and it's great to see you, Cassandra. Talk about women leaders. I have two of them here with this discussion, so you two will have stories to tell, I know too. Let me just say this, I never planned on a career in Congress. Most of us women don't do that, but honestly, I think we're probably more prepared than anyone else, because here, when I think about who we are as women and our various roles in our life, we realize that there's so much that we do that encompasses the totality of our community, our own personal life, our children's, the sense of who we are, even as Americans too. So when I first ran, it was deeply personal to me. I had served the Sacramento region for most of my adult life. Not as an elected person, but in many other ways. I served on community boards, on leadership positions. I had also worked in community service and understood what really makes Sacramento tick. And I also was, having done that, also able to serve on a presidential administration. First of all, I was on the transition board for a newly elected president, and also was able to serve in a White House with Bill Clinton at that time. So for both my late husband, Bob Matsui, and I, our love for the Sacramento region always have fueled our work in Congress, and truly understanding the community at the basic level, our neighbors, our friends, our organizations, really does empower us to a great degree. We have amazing people, organizations in Sacramento. And what we wanted to do was use their political power and our political know-how to effectively really advocate for the policies that really do impact Sacramento. And I have to say that it's been the honor of my life when I got elected to be able to take it to another level and use the knowledge and experience that I've had as just a regular person walking around the community and knowing people and knowing their desires and their challenges. And it's really helped me to really develop policies that really impact all of us in the Sacramento region.
Thank you, Doris. I'm interested about the time that you started in Congress 16 years ago. And at that time, there really weren't very many women serving in the House of Representatives. And we know that gender bias exists even now, but what was your experience during that period of time? Did you personally experience gender bias? And if so, what did you do to overcome those conditions?
Well, I think let's put this in context because I think all of us kind of go back to our chapters in our life. And I remember when I first started voting, it was very unusual to have a woman on the ballot. And there are many challenges for women, I think still, but not as much as before. For instance, just the idea of raising money to run for an office is a challenge in itself. And what most women do not understand is we usually raise money for a lot of other causes and maybe not for ourselves. And so we have to look upon ourselves as a cause that represent other people. And so I have to say that when I first ran for Congress and got into Congress, I felt, because being from California, we already at that time, I can say in at least the Democratic side of the aisle, we had majority women already Congress people in our state. And so when we looked around the table already, we had people that we can relate to very easily. And there was a sense that all of us were fairly equal in a sense of, who we were. Now there were newer members, obviously, because we were newer, most women. We really had the whole process of having to somewhat prove ourselves. But you know what? We all have to do that anyway. And I really feel that we have to understand that we can't put ourselves down. We have a lot to do. And I think the fact that seeing other women around the table helps you in that process because understandably, we have shared many experiences. And I have learned that when you're around a table, if there's only one woman, it's kind of difficult. You get another woman in there, even though you might not agree all the time, there's that eye contact. I understand you, I get you. So there's a whole sense of support beginning to happen there. So I think that all of us feel that we have a challenge to prove ourselves. I think that's a normal situation. But women in particular are very diverse in where we come from, our experiences, and but we still have a sense that we understand each other. So as much as possible, we look to each other for support, and it's really been remarkable at the progress that women have been making, and it's really not exactly just because it isn't because we're women. It's because we're dedicated as public servants and we're going to get the job done for our constituents.
Yeah, that's great, Doris. So today you're serving with more women than ever in Congress. So what has that meant to you personally? And then how do you see that really changing the way that business or policy or things just getting done in Congress? How do you see that has changed over time?
I think it's really remarkable. I think all of us feel that there are changes. There need to be more. I mean, you mentioned how many members, women members are in Congress. We still are over in the population of the country. We're over 50%. So we haven't quite reached at that point in time, but we're getting there in a sense of our influence in Congress. And you can see that with the highest person in our Congress is a woman, Nancy Pelosi, who's probably the most powerful woman in this country. But she doesn't look at it that way. She really wants to ensure that she can move this country forward. And she's instilled that in many of us. And so we have a sense that we have a mission to accomplish here. And having other women in power and as your colleagues certainly helps out a great deal. And we have a women's caucus, we have a bipartisan women's caucus, we have a Democratic women's caucus, but we do work together. We even have certain policies that we are, just really do gather around and support. We're organized now in a way that we never were organized, even when I first started in Congress, so that we have certain bills. They're not necessarily women's bills, but they're economic bills that helps everybody. But we can put them up on our own caucus and say, like your support on that, so we can do that in a very organized way, which we didn't do before at all. And all of us are spread through many important committees, and we do work with a lot of people, but we also know who to talk to. And in a sense, that sense of solidarity to a certain degree or cooperation is inspiring to many, especially newer members of Congress, because they're not alone at all, ever. And most of us feel like, let's touch base and make sure that you have the tools you need. Do you want to have a conversation about what committee you want to be on? Let's talk about it. And that's not what we had before at all. Sort of a guidance is how we do things and what committees might be important to you, depending upon your interests and your experiences. And so there is a sense that we are moving forward. Now, as you know, it's never quite enough, but I am really pleased to see women like yourself in your industry, which is really not an easy industry for a woman to be in. And let's just face it, and most places, most sectors of our economy are still not there yet. And part of what we're trying to do is to ensure that we have people in all women in all areas. I think is more holistic, the attitude that we have. We may be women members of Congress, but that's not all we are. We occupy many other so-called identities. And so holistically, we can really work together in a way that I believe has been very energizing. And women are pretty persistent and resilient. We've known how to do that, especially if any of us have kids, and you just sort of have to plow ahead and do what you have to do. But I must say that there's a lot of strength in who we are today, and the fact that we have daughters and granddaughters who are looking at us also. And I want the future for my granddaughter to be able to be bright, so she knows she can do anything she could do that she wants to do, she can choose to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I really liked what you said earlier about we have to be able to invest in ourselves and promote ourselves really to advance. And I say that, I think Marcie and I both speak a lot to women in leadership and staff development. And I know that we both have a passion for that. One of the things that I give advice to those that are seeking to aspire for, leadership careers and public services to be bold and be brave and stretch yourself and, really trust in yourself, kind of like what you were saying. You really have to trust in yourself and promote yourself for what you can achieve. But what advice do you have for women or anyone really aspiring to a career in public service or politics?
Well, I think it's like anything else. I mean, I'm glad that you said what you did, Cassandra, because I think most women growing up have been taught to be polite, to be nice, and be considerate. I think it's fine. We can do all of that, and I think it's a way that we can negotiate in life as we push ourselves forward. But understand that is not just who we are. We're not just polite people, as you know. And I think the understanding that you have to, as I say, as the speaker, Pelosi, know your power. Know you really can, and you will not know that unless you use it. Right. And, I think about the fact that, you know, I remember Sandra Day O'Connor saying something one time, which is kind of relevant today when you think about it. She said, the first step to gaining power is to be visible, to be visible to others, and then go for it, because you have to show that you're in the room. And I really believe that when we're in a meeting, and I think you've maybe when, as you were coming up, you'd be in a meeting with people, mostly men, right? And so you have an idea, but you're going to wait to see how things go before you speak up. And then by the time you speak up too late, then all of a sudden everything has been spoken about, and so you don't get listened to. So I always feel that, you have, maybe you may not want to be the first person to speak up or the second or third, but speak up early on. And also what I used to hate was when we would say something and then they'd agree, and then all of a sudden somebody else, someone down the row who is not a different gender than we are, would say it, and it was, oh, that's just great. But then what you have to do, which I didn't do before, was just say, I'm really glad you agree with me. I mean, because you have to, women don't want to take credit. That's just the way we are. Take credit. And, we're just going to mention, thank you so much for agreeing with me. I just think it's great, don't you? We have to be assertive in many ways that we are not used to. And I think you all have done the same thing. And I want our young girls, our future leaders to feel like they could speak up. We want to hear from you. And I think now I think it's somewhat easier to do that. I think there is a sense that amongst most organizations that everybody counts here. And in particular, we have found through the challenging time of the COVID, how important it was to have women who had to sacrifice so much. I mean, most women work. I mean, they just do. And then they had to step back during this time to educate their children who couldn't go to school, and maybe take care of their family member, and it just is one of these things where people begin to realize, wow. And there's a huge economic loss there, just even amongst women, because they couldn't go to work, right? They didn't have childcare. They didn't have someone to take care of their parents. And now we are very much in that fight, in the sense of we are losing in the economy if we don't support women to the greatest degree. They, there are mothers and they take care of the house and all that. That's fine. That's great. But there's got to be more sharing, which there is today also. But honestly, women need childcare. We all have known that for a long time, but now we are going to get them childcare, and we're doing it now. And we also believe that we need to make sure that the people in a household have to understand that it's not just the mom is going to take care of everybody. If the grandparent is at home, let's try to figure out how we possibly get help. And that means another economic force right there, because we need to get more providers of care, so we can get women out to really meet their full potential. And I also realize that's important as a signal to both girls and boys that we're all in this together. And, your mom works hard. She works hard on the outside and she provides. And your father also helps at home. I mean, it's happened. I guess there's no really good silver lining, but I think people have realized that everybody has to pitch in. And during this pandemic, that's what has happened. We're taking that and running with that, not only as women in Congress, but everyone who has gotten through this understands how difficult it was. They've seen it in their own family. And so it's an economic issue as well as a family issue. And there's much more understanding about that today than there ever was before.
I just, I was smiling throughout this part of the segment, just the fact that bringing up some of the uncomfortable moments in our careers. And I don't know if Cassandra has experienced what you just explained about, sitting in a room and you would express an idea, and somewhere down that line might be a male counterpart expresses the same idea, and all of a sudden it's a great idea. And so I really liked your view on that, where you just put out the thank you for agreeing with me. I think that's a great way to handle that. I think that still happens to this day, but I really appreciate you talking a little bit about, those uncomfortable moments. And I do think that women tend to be a little more humble. And I think they think that assertiveness is going to be seen as being, hysterical or, emotional. And so I've really, had to, think about how do you be assertive, be persistent in what you believe in, without having that reaction be that, oh, she's being emotional, or she's having a bad day, or,
Yeah.
So really appreciate you talking about that, because I think, some of the viewers who are watching this have likely expressed or have actually experienced that in their own careers as well, and maybe not have known how to handle it. So our next question is, you serve as co-chair of several congressional caucuses. How pivotal a role have these caucuses really been in your career? And, what have you really learned through those leadership processes?
Well, I really believe that you have to show leadership in many different ways. And, I've been involved in many caucuses, but there are several caucuses I'm really, really very much involved with, because the issues that we are dealing with are very important, not only through my colleagues in the Congress, but also throughout the country too. So, I am, for instance, vice chair of the Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. As you know, technology and the internet are probably the underpinning of everything that we're doing today. And in particular, we notice how terribly lacking we are as far as, for instance, broadband in schools and even in home, and how children are being left behind. So that to me is something that's really very important, broadly speaking. But quite frankly, it encompasses every sector that we work on. I mean, whether it's going to be health, or whether it's energy, the environment, or financial services, transportation. So I really feel very committed to that, because we have to stay ahead of this to understand how we use technology in the most productive way, efficiently, and also to think about in a way that has integrity in it too. And I think those are the challenges that we're having today. And I'm co-chair of the task force on aging and families. And I think that's so important, as I said before, the fact that people are aging, and we are not prepared at all. We don't have facilities, we don't have the caregivers, and we love our parents, and we want to make sure that we owe them. And so whatever we can do, a lot of it is going to be services provided, people coming in to the home, because a lot of them they still can live at home, but they still need help. So we're looking at ways to do that. And that's really expanding some of the services that we already have, but it's not enough because we haven't focused enough on the aging. The aging does impact the families. And so that's why we put task force on aging and families. And I'm also co-chair of the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition, which really is about what's happened today. It's been happening for a long time, but we're seeing all the impacts of climate now. And the fact that this is a huge challenge that impacts us around the world. And you look upon what's happening in California with the wildfires, and then also we've had flooding too. But places in this country that never experienced quite the deluge, let's say, of the rainfall, like through the Midwest, and the rising sea levels that are occurring now, and the storms are much, much stronger today. So those are the things we can actually see today, but things are already going on that's been very negative to us. And so I feel for the future of this country, especially our children and grandchildren's generation, we need to try to stop the tide as far as the negative impacts of what's happening today. So to me, that impacts our health, impacts the way we live, our type of housing, where we live, our transportation, everything. So that to me is something that all of us are involved in. I think the public itself understands now how important that is. And I just really feel that those are the kinds of things that we have to do. And, my other, activities are being co-chair of the High Tech Caucus is really great because that's very much a bipartisan caucus that really works together. And also the Democratic Women's Caucus and also the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. I had a leadership roles in that some years back, and I am so proud of the way it has grown to become a real force in our own Congress. And it's been pretty remarkable when I think about this, and we think about where we are today with Women's Equality Day and all of this business, and I'm thinking we're getting there, but we still have to keep pushing as much as possible. We talk about it, I said before, women's issues, but it's more than that. Women's issues are economic issues. I mean, they truly are. We have to understand that women have to have decent paying jobs in order to do, they're doing the same job perhaps as a male counterpart, but they're not getting paid for that. And that is totally unfair. So, we have to have paycheck, fairness. We have to understand that we have to have child care to get women to work. And also in a sense of the example in education with Title IX, and we have to reauthorize this. We look upon that as something, oh, okay, that's nice. It's more than nice. It serves as an example, a demonstration about how we value women and their role and their performance. Okay, I have authored the Goals Act, which is a resolution really ensuring equal pay for the U.S. women's national soccer team. Everybody says, why? Well, because they don't get paid equally at all. And they're so acclaimed for everything that they've done. And so we're working very hard on that because I don't know. I remember when they were playing and, with winning several World Cups. It was interesting. Everybody got involved in that and we're rooting for them. And so it wasn't a woman's thing at all. That it was something that we're all in this together and we're winning together. And, it's something like this makes a positive change and it ripples beyond any individual demographic groups. I mean, my granddaughter was so excited about this. Her friends were excited about it. Her male friends were all excited about this. This is what we want. So we want to break down the barriers. And that's just something that people can see. They saw that on television about how exciting it is. They played so well. Well, let's do it in everyday life too. And, I just really feel that there is, we can't leave, we have to, everybody is important. Everybody can contribute. And I don't want anyone, any girl, any woman to feel they can't do it. And I think all of this, I know I was there for a while when I was young. I didn't want to make any mistakes. I needed to figure out exactly how things were done so that when I presented or whatever, it was perfect. You can't wait for perfection when you do things like that. And sometimes you just have to do as much as you can and know your issue, but you don't have to know every last detail. And you go for it and you speak out. Okay, someone's going to say, oh, it's wrong. I said, well, I apologize. I'm sorry about that. But apologize, to go in there, and I'd rather have to apologize than regret later on. not saying something. And I know there are a few times I remember in my life, I said, gee, I wish I would have said that. I should have said it at the beginning or maybe earlier, and I didn't. And then somebody else picked it up. Okay, don't do that.
Thank you. One of the things that you had said earlier really resonates with me about, you know, needing to raise your hand and speak your mind and be one of the first to do that, which I absolutely, you know, support and agree with, and trying to make sure your voice is heard. And one of the quotes I think that resonates with me most, I'm stealing this, maybe I'm stealing it from you, I don't know, but it's hard to be or achieve what you can't see. And so getting women in positions of authority and having opportunity for access and having a seat at the table is so important. And being able to raise your hand and speak out on what people want is so important in their ability to advance, so that others, including women, can support one another to get there. So I know that a lot of the things that you're promoting and advocating for are in the areas of advancing women in areas that otherwise they might not have the representation that our other genders might have, or the male gender has, including the STEM education. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about those advocacy work that you're doing in that area, and then also talk about some of the other areas that you're focused on with equal pay and fairness for pregnant women. Mm-hmm. What are the key to success when you're working on issues that affect individual demographic groups like this?
Well, you know, they affect, it seems to me, individual demographic groups, but yet it affects their families and others too. And I am really glad that we're advocating in this way, because these were things that people were afraid to talk about before. And the fact is that women are not afraid to speak out now based upon their own experiences. And they have others around them who've had the same experiences. Okay, men have not been pregnant, so they don't really understand that aspect of it. But some of your colleagues who are women understand exactly what you go through with pregnancy, for instance. And so there's, in a sense, those are the issues that as women we can push forward on. And yet there are also workplace issues too, because I mean, you know, we think about pregnancy, it's not supposed to be something that, oh, she's got to go away for a while. Oh, come on. You know, we want to take care of ourselves, yes, but we understand that there's certain things that we need to be make sure that we have. I mean, if we have children, if we have babies and we want to go to work, we want to make sure if we're, you know, we have a place in order to be able to feed the babies and all of that. So when we have women in power or who can actually make those changes in facilities or anything else, it's really helpful for the women, and in the sense of being able to stay in the workforce. And as far as things like STEM, I am so committed to that, because STEM is important, because that's another area where most women, most girls, felt that they weren't competent in. When you look at children, you know, most boys and girls are very confidently understand things about science and everything through you know, maybe first through fourth or fifth grade. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Are girls not supposed to know about that, or they drop out or something like that? No, I think what's happening now, I'm so glad this is happening. There are activities now where young girls have shown how smart they are. And for instance, robotics. My granddaughter was in a club with robotics. And, you know, you don't talk about it as being science or anything like that. You're building things, right? But they can see the relationships and how they put things together, and realize that some of the things they're learning in class is what they're doing there. And so I just really feel that is so important. And the fact that there are many more parents who are encouraging their young girls to go in those fields. And quite frankly, the fact that technology is so important in our lives now, that the impact it has on young girls is tremendous, because that is a way to get into many fields. You know, I have to say, when I first started out in the workforce, you know, I was recently married, and I graduated from Berkeley, but I didn't have a job yet. And so, and my husband wanted to open up a law practice. And so I got to work, right? So in this, you know, with the state capital of California, you know, you were able to take a test and to find out where you might be placed. Well, I found out that when I didn't know, that I had an aptitude for programming and systems analysis. So started to work, and actually it was, well, it wasn't CalPERS at that time, but it was a precursor to that. So I learned how to program, how to code. Well, you know, I just didn't realize how important that was. It will be in our life later on, but just the idea of what that can do, right? That experience, we want to get that at a level for young people so they understand that this is the way that we're making changes in not only our work, but in places of entertainment, in healthcare, and everything else. So to me, STEM is important not only for girls, but for boys to understand that there are ways to make changes in this life, and to be able to participate and actually do things and demonstrate to young people what they can do with some of these things. It's just not a theory or something like that, just to show them the progress. And let me tell you this too, as much as I really do believe that STEM is important, but I also believe that placing art in there is so important too, because the communications aspect, the fact that art brings into us a whole sense of being a part of something even bigger, because we can communicate in a way that we can't do otherwise. So art has a sense of making sure that some of these aspects of STEM, the creativity and the harnessing of some of these experiences, can also be upgraded to a level where in the brain, innovation takes place, more creativity, more in a sense of how we make more connections, not only with some of the work that we're doing in science, but also the fact that there's a greater reason as to why we're doing this. And there's more communication involved. And the fact that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we need to have a sense of our humanity too. And art does bring the humanity into many aspects of our lives that might seem to be more technical, more in a sense of just doing your job. It really is trying to make sure that the importance of who we are in this life is not only what we do as far as our professions, but also who we are as we relate to other people and communicate with each other. Because in a democracy, we do have to have that sense of togetherness and being able to work towards a goal together. And I think that understanding that the human aspects of us are brought forth in the way we deal with how we look at areas that are beyond just, just black and white.
Thanks, Doris. So I think our final question is a really important one to end with, and that is, going forward, there will be much more work ahead, and hopefully results that go along with that work to protect the rights of people of color and different ethnic backgrounds, as well as the LGBTQ plus community. Mm-hmm. So what can you tell our viewers about how best to advance these issues? And is there a role that they could play as well?
I really believe that we have made it's incredible how much progress has been made. It's been, in many ways, it took a long time, but then it accelerated. For a lot of people, it was too fast. But for all of us who understand the importance of what's happened, we really must engage in a sense of why it's important to include everybody. We cannot leave anyone behind here at all. We're in this together, and to reach our full potential, we need to understand each other and know that there are differences, yes, but that's fine. We bring something to this whole mosaic, but that also means that we have to be supportive of each other so we can move together. Divisions have occurred, we all know that, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we can't reject each other. And I'm sure families are finding out this is a country that is become very diverse in their own families. And you can't reject your own families. And I think, in a sense, that as more of us are involved in many of these things are happening in policy arenas, because we want to make sure that it is embedded in law. And I think that's really what's important today as far as what we are doing. But we need to have people in the community and the neighborhoods and in our own cities understand that that's who we are. And we are stronger because of that too. And we have a wider community of people that we can work with to understand and get new ideas and be able to make interesting connections. And it's up to all of us to support a lot of people, a lot of the groups, a lot of the people who are trying to move forward and bring them in, because we all need to be together on this too. So diversity is wonderful, but we need to come together. And I always say a mosaic. So you see each of the colors, but we're moving together. And I think, I really believe that as women, we have seen this an awful lot. We deal with a lot of people. We take our children to schools, or we go to the grocery stores. We do a lot of things that we have to do, and yet we deal with a lot of different kinds of people. We're seeing this in our workplace too. And I really feel that we're much stronger because of that. And, it's anything that is worthwhile like this takes a little bit of effort. And I'm willing to get into that effort. And I have been. And I know most of my colleagues are in the same way too. So, because it's not just for this generation, but it's for future generations. I mean, my goodness, who knows? It just is, it's going to be a different world, but I want it to be a world that we can work together and really become much more cohesive and be able to contribute our own viewpoints and our own creativity. And that's really, and I feel positive about that. It's not easy. On the other hand, I really feel that it's what's here now, and we support that, and let's just move forward on it and just try to make it as the best thing possible.
I know we appreciate, obviously, you are leading with a lot of positivity, a lot of insight and perspective in informing these policy decisions. But we really want to thank you, Congresswoman, for being here. Thank you for your service. It's obvious to us, and I know it's obvious to our viewers, that you do have a lot of passion about these issues. And with passion and positivity, you can really make some momentum or get some really important results. But I'd also like to thank Cassandra for joining the conversation. I'm just so thrilled that Cassandra became the CEO at CalSTRS, and she and I have become fast friends already and are thinking about things that we can tackle together in the investment industry. And being two females running the #1 and #2 systems, we think that there is some impact that we can have as well. So at this time, we are going to take just a short 5-minute break. Please rejoin us shortly for a live panel discussion with some of Sacramento's premier female CEOs. And so with that, we'll see you all soon.